Hello and welcome back to another episode of our discussion about communicated narrative sense-making theory. This is the 6th episode, and we're going to chat about attribution theory and how it relates to CNSM, movies and TV, as well as the real world. Let's get right into it. I hope I don't need to remind you again what CNSM is, but for the sake of consistency, just do it a few more times. CNSM is a communication theory suggesting that storytelling can be connected to health and well-being. This is especially evident when it comes to the satisfying patterns of storytelling that we see in these 7 basic plots we've been talking about. In these narratives, we can make certain assumptions, or attributions, about where the story is going, and if we are correct, we are pleased with ourselves and satisfied with the expected outcome of the story. However, we can also be satisfied and intrigued by a story that is unexpected, but we can talk more about that later in a different series. Let's introduce attribution theory and what exactly it means to us human beings. Attribution theory describes the behavior we use in order to meet our inborn need to know why something happened and what or who is responsible for it. We interpret our environment and the events we experience, and by this interpretation, we make sense of our surroundings. For example, we make different assumptions or attributions about people based on how they are dressed, act, and react to situations around them. Additionally, this theory emphasizes 4 different components or dimensions of how we make attributions. These dimensions include the locus, or our decision on whether the cause of something is internal or external, the stability, or the extent to which the situation is either long-lasting or temporary, the specificity, or the degree to which the event is more unique to us or a more universal experience, and responsibility, or who ought to be held blameworthy for an event. There's also an added aspect of intentionality that can overshadow all these things. So if we look at these 4 people in this picture here, they may be here for multiple different reasons, but there is also the question of intentionality, of are they here on purpose? Why are they here? Who are they going to blame for being here? Why did they dress the way they did? Why did they comb their hair the way they did? All these aspects are part of our daily interpersonal interactions. Empirical research on attributions is fairly widespread, but one article in particular stood out to me. It was an article titled Perceived Resiliency, The Influence of Resilience Narratives on Attribution Processes of Selection by King et al. This article relates these narratives to hiring recommendations following interviews, suggesting that participants who showed resilience and proper emotional reactions to challenges that arise, and how that related to then interview success. They use the locus of support and the locus of adversity to demonstrate resiliency as a trait. The locus of support describes the resources used to adapt to a challenge, and the locus of adversity describes the actual source of the challenge, that being a perceived internal or external challenge. They found the locus of support related to perceived resiliency if the locus of adversity is kept internal, allowing for a sense of control and responsibility over the problem that aids in solving that issue. When this perceived sense of resiliency is displayed in narratives about overcoming those challenges, it leads to more hiring recommendations and better emotional reactions. Now, let's bring attribution theory and CNSM together. One way to relate these two together is based on the importance of attributions in storytelling. When we tell jokes, for example, we lead the audience to believe a certain thing in the setup of the joke, but then when they feel comfortable and confident in a situation, that reality is suddenly whipped out from underneath their feet to reveal a sudden change in environment, showing that they were making a spurious correlation. That change in scenery of the story is also called the punchline, as it can really make your belly ache, hence the name. For example, I was sitting in my living room once and my roommate was sitting across from me. It was a particularly windy day that day, and our door has this very slight crack in the bottom, and so whenever the wind would blow extra hard, it would make the door frame howl, and he was just kind of sitting there reading a book, and I couldn't really see his mouth, and I was like, wow, I didn't realize you were a werewolf. And so that kind of wind behavior was something that I attributed to Charles, when in reality it was a spurious correlation because it was the door making that noise, not my roommate Charles. So that's an example of how jokes can use those attributions to then make light of a situation that's uncommon or new. Then we can see how human beings create meaning through attribution stories. One could argue that this is especially prominent in religions, where events that occur without a clear cause or explanation are then reasoned through spiritual or religious dogma. Whether or not these religious tales, which could also be viewed as archetypal stories, are true or not is a topic for a completely different video series. For now, though, we can use this reasoning to serve as a warning about cycles of internal bias and echo chambers, where the same reasoning can be used over and over again based on your worldview and your own attributions, which can cut you off from learning something new outside your comfort zone. Additionally, it is key to note that human beings tell stories in order to attribute behaviors based on our loci of control, those being internal again or external. If we feel that the locus of control for a negative situation is external, I have reason to believe that we are less likely to push back against it, simply because that's the way it is. However, if we believe we have a say in what is happening, say a dragon is stealing gold from my village, I believe that I can do something about it, and therefore am more likely to figure out a solution to that problem, like slaying the dragon. Let's continue this example about overcoming the monster with our first film. The film Hidden Figures, an Overcoming the Monster narrative, is a historical look at how the U.S. space program during the Cold War functioned, especially with the behind the scenes of who did the math and calculations. Let's take a look at the clip and find some connections to attribution theory.
Can't attend?
Because she doesn't have clearance, Al.
I cannot do my work effectively if I do not have all of the data and all of the information as soon as it's available. I need to be in that room hearing what you hear.
Pentagon briefings are not for civilians. It requires the highest clearance.
I feel like I'm the best person to present my calculations.
You're not gonna let this go, are you?
No, I am not.
And she is a woman. There is no protocol for a woman
Okay,
attending
I
these
get
meetings.
that part, Paul. But within these walls, who makes the rules?
You, sir. You are the boss.
This is Catherine Goebel with our Trajectory and Launch Window Division. Her work is pertinent to today's proceedings. Come on. Want to get her a chair?
Okay, so we have the vehicle's speed, the launch window, and for argument's sake, the landing zone is the Bahamas. Should be enough to figure the go, no-go?
Yeah, in theory, sir.
We need to be past theory at this point.
We'll be able to calculate a go, no-go with that information.
When exactly is that gonna happen?
Catherine? Have a go at it?
The goal point for re-entry is 2,990 miles from where we want Colonel Glenn to land. If we assume that's the Bahamas, at 17,544 miles per hour, upon re-entry, 370 feet, at a descent angle of 46.56 degrees, distance is velocity squared, sine gravity squared, sine 32 feet, and the distance would be 20,530,372 feet, or 2,990 miles, or 46.33 degrees. Okay, so that puts your landing zone at 5.0667 degrees north, 77.3333 degrees west, which is here. Right here. Give or take 20 square miles.
In the clip, we saw how one of the characters was not comfortable about welcoming Catherine into the briefing room. This is due to multiple reasons, which include military protocol, war-charged emotions, along with residues of sexism and racism that were very topical during that period. Additionally, the attributions and internal narratives occurring in the minds of those in the briefing room were then shattered when Catherine put up a stellar performance on the chalkboard. Her internal locus of control really allowed her to take charge and show her worth. Our next clip is from the TV show Sherlock, also an Overcoming the Monster story, which is full of deductions and attributions, which we'll see right now.
You reckon this is connected then, the bomber?
Must be. Odd, though. He hasn't been in touch.
We must assume that some poor bugger's primed to explode, yeah?
Yes.
Any ideas?
7 so far.
7?
He's dead about 24 hours. Maybe a bit longer. Did he drown?
Well, apparently not. Not enough of the Thames in his lungs, asphyxiated.
Yes, I'd agree. There's quite a bit of bruising around the nose and mouth. More bruises here and here.
Fingertips.
He's late 30s. I'd say, not in the best condition.
He's been in the river a long while. The water's destroyed most of the data. But I'll tell you one thing. That lost Vermeer painting's a fake.
What?
We need to identify the corpse, find out about his friends and
Wait.
associates.
What painting? What are you wanting about?
It's all over the place. Haven't you seen the posters? Dutch Old Master. It's supposed to be destroyed centuries ago. Now it's turned up. Worth £30 million.
Okay, so what has that got to do with the stiff?
Everything. You ever heard of the Golem?
Golem.
It's a horror story, isn't it? What are you saying?
Jewish folk story. A gigantic man made of clay. It's also the name of an assassin. Real name Oscar Zunzer, one of the deadliest assassins in the world. That is his trademark style.
So this is a hit?
Definitely. The golem squeezes the life out of his victims with his bare hands.
But what has this got to do with that painting? I don't see...
You do see, you just don't observe.
All right. Girls, calm down. Sherlock, do you want to take us through it?
What do we know about this corpse? Killer's not left us with much, just the shirt and the trousers. They're pretty formal. Maybe he was going out for the night, but the trousers are heavy-duty. Polyester, nasty, same as the shirt, cheap. They're both too big for him. So some kind of standard issue uniform, dressed for work then. What kind of work? There's a hook on his belt for a walkie-talkie.
Tube driver?
Security guard?
More likely. That'll be borne out by his backside.
Backside?
Flabby, you'd think that he led a sedentary life. Yet the soles of his feet and the nascent varicose veins in his legs show otherwise. So a lot of walking and a lot of sitting around. Security guards are looking good. And the watch helps too. The alarm shows he did regular night shift.
Why regular? Maybe he just set his alarm like that the night before he died?
No. The buttons are stiff, hardly touched. He set his alarm like that a long time ago. His routine never varied. But there's something else. The killer must have been interrupted. Otherwise, he would have stripped the corpse completely. There was some kind of badge or insignia on the shirt front that he tore off, suggesting the dead man worked somewhere recognizable, some kind of institution. Found this inside his trouser pockets. Sodden by the river, but still recognizably.
Tickets?
Ticket stubs. He worked in a museum or gallery. Did a quick check. The Hitten Gallery has reported one of its attendants as missing, Alex Woodbridge. Tonight, they unveil the rediscovered masterpiece. Now, why would anyone want to pay the golem to suffocate a perfectly ordinary gallery attendant? Inference, the dead man knew something about it, something that would stop the owner getting paid £30 million. The pictures are fake.
Fantastic.
Meretricious.
And Happy New Year.
Here, we saw Sherlock take charge of this crime scene by sharing the story of this dead body, which he constructed based on attributions he made from small, almost imperceptible details of the body. As he said, there's plenty that we see, but we lose even more details because we don't observe. That distinction between seeing and observation goes back to that intentionality bit we briefly mentioned before, as Sherlock utilizes his knowledge of criminals and assumptions by both the police and the perpetrator to deduce the final story of how the body ended up where it was. It is always great to see a magnificent detective monologue, isn't it? Our last example for today is another excerpt from a TV show, but this time from the hit 2000 show Breaking Bad, an archetypal tragedy. Let's see if you can find where the attributions are in this clip.
So that every day at lunch, we would both be doing the New York Times crossword puzzle 10 feet from each other. And Eventually, I caught her looking over at me. So I began saying, excuse me, 14 across, 7-letter word for whatchamacallit. May I ask what you wrote down? And, well, that got us talking. And, boy, I tell you, I was terrible at those puzzles. I don't think that I finished even one of them. But your mother would do them in ink.
Very smooth. I bet you didn't think your old man had it in him, huh? But that's what I'm talking about. That's persistent, you see? Once you set your cap for something or somebody, you gotta just, you know. Whoa. Sky. Mom, are you all right?
Hey. Shh, honey, it's okay. What's the matter? What is it? Ask him.
What's she talking about?
Walt?
I have cancer. Lung cancer. It's bad.
In this case, it would help a little bit to know the story of the TV show. Walter White is trying to hide his recent hobby of cooking and selling methamphetamine, also known as meth. His wife, Skylar, noticed long before, but Walter was hiding not only the secret of cooking and selling drugs, but also that he was diagnosed with cancer. The unusual behavior from Walter led Skylar to assume that something was wrong. Then, when Walter offered an attribution for that irregular behavior, his cancer diagnosis, Skylar and Walter's family didn't dig any further into the strange behavior by Walter, as that secret seemed to fit the bill. Additionally, when Skylar tells the family to ask Walter what made her cry, Marie, Skylar's sister, assumes that Walter did something within his control. In reality, though, Walter explains his diagnosis, which simultaneously satisfies the family with an answer, but also devastates them because of what this illness could do to Walter and the family. In case you couldn't tell already, this theory and other communication theories lean heavily on psychology for their applications. Assumption, negotiation tactics, and showing positive face for multiple different goals all depend on knowledge acquired through psychological research. Attribution theory is no different. An article by Kendra Cherry, a Master of Science in Education, points out how conflict can arise because of faulty or inaccurate attributions that we make. Social psychology emphasizes how attributions provide causes for events and behaviors, and if we make incorrect or rash assumptions, that can lead to disconnection, discord, and discontent in relationships. This can further be exacerbated if we don't tell each other our stories of these experiences, as without those stories, we cannot really know another person and how they deal with conflict. And just like that, another theory connection is down. We are 3/4 of the way there to wrapping up our conversation about CNSM, communication theories, and applications of those in film and the world. Next time, we will dive into the complexities of the communication theory of identity and how that is related to CNSM, movies, and our world. See you there.